Hi everyone, welcome to Oneistox Mentor Talks. Today we are going to discuss why is every architecture practice looking for a BIM specialist. And today we have with us André.
Hi
Hi André.
everyone. Hi Anna. Hi everyone.
So André is the founder and architect of AMArc Studio and also a BIM consultant to many firms across Portugal. The most unique feature of Andre's firm is that they do a complete BIM process, starting from the design stage, going up to the execution of the building. He is going to help us understand why are these architectural practices changing rapidly with the adaptation of technology and this rising requirement of BIM. From Andre's journey, we'll today learn about his choices, how he chose BIM to be a part of his professional identity as an architect, and what is the difference that it has created in his studio now that is with BIM than without, and how it all adds up to the AEC industry. So, Andre, just to start quickly with one of my few questions, I want to understand that how the young architects are always conditioned to relate to the concept and design aspect of the building, and they're not something, they don't relate to the practical and technical bit of the building. And then we have you when we know that you're running a studio which does this entire process holistically, starting from design, going up to building management, integration with BIM. So we want to know how you chose BIM.
Oh, it's a great question. I started some years ago, and I come up from the school, from university, and I was taught to do everything from night to day, changing things and stuff like this. And when I went to the professional market, working as an architect, as an internship, I understood that everything was the same way we did in the school. So people always want changes from one day to the other. People were doing things different one from each other, even if we were working on the same company. And then I start questioning why are we still working this way? Why are we still using these linear drawings? And when we need to change something, we are always repeating the process, changing here and increasing the issues and the mistakes. Because come on, if we are changing one drawing is one thing, but changing a lot is changing the model, the 3D model that we are doing separately, and so on. So this was something that starts to sound not very productive and made me more of someone just repeating a process over and over again. So at a certain point, I asked my boss at the time and say, okay, why don't we go to Revit and start to think about BIM? And come on, in the end, you'll be increasing our answer. So we'll be doing more things rapidly and avoiding mistakes. That's the biggest issues there. So after a while saying, okay, maybe, and so on, he declined it. We didn't go through with this idea that I had. And I said, okay, I'm leaving. I was in that part of my career where I was thinking, either I stay here and I get doing the same things everyone is doing, or I go to another place and start to look forward to start doing other things and not just being one more architect, being frustrated about changing what the client wants from to do what the client wants from one day to the other. So I went to another company. I started my journey. I was doing this process that was kind of crazy because I was working there during the day, and then I went home and continued learning, searching, trying to do my own projects. It was kind of crazy at that time, but I came up to this concept that okay, I now know how to model things in a software, but I need even more about to learn more about this methodology, how to implement BIM. What is BIM in the end? How can I increase my productivity, and how can I avoid doing those boring tasks that everyone is complaining about but doing nothing about that? So all this idea and going to people, talking to them, and they always saying, we are still doing the buildings like we did in the 80s, so why are you bothering with that? Come on. And that made me crazy because as a young architect, I was always looking to do something different and showing something that is better and trying to understand how can we actually improve what we were doing before. So working more efficient and proposing something that is not just beautiful, and the idea of having these magic windows and stuff like this. So these parts of the building that were amazing, but in the end, we are not able to control what we are doing in our own offices. So this made me jump to another company where I was doing more BIM related things. I was a BIM manager at that time. But even then, I was looking for something more. Then I did a post graduation, always thinking about how can we increase our way of thinking, let's say, how can we improve our processes and have more time to do architecture projects. But yeah, and the overall idea was that from the companies I went through the other, some of them are growing and they are investing in professionals that start to want to learn more about BIM, to optimize things, to do things better, and not just repeating a process, and starts to move things around, making some noise, and then they will validate those things. That's why I was always jumping from one side to the other, because I didn't want to stay quiet for a while and just do what the others told me to do. And BIM was kind of an answer to that. I was looking to BIM to the idea of using technology to never stop. It was kind of an excuse at that time, and it still is nowadays. So I'm constantly looking for something more inside BIM and in parallel to BIM. So it's a whole new world.
I just love how your curiosity made you take so many leaps of faith till you eventually have found this aspect of BIM being plugged into your architectural life. And now that you have BIM, how has it changed the career path fully? Because you're now on an absolutely new path, which is architecture plus BIM. And how do you see yourself as an architect who has the ability to be a BIM specialist rather than an architect who does not have this ability at all?
Yeah, I think the one of the questions that most of people think when they talk about BIM is they always tend to place them in the opposite side. They always think more like, okay, I'm BIM, I'm an architect. This always made me some confusion. So I don't like to look to one side of things. I always think in a multidisciplinary world, the idea of having these disciplines in contact and getting the best of each one. So for the practice, my own practice, I didn't look at the idea of having BIM and architect like two different realms. I was looking to the way to do better architecture. And that was the idea overall. So I was trying to find a way to get the value that architects and other designers deserve. So we cannot do that if we still do the things that, or even worse things that the others have done in the past. So if you are not able to show something more, show something better, then we cannot increase our value. People don't see architects nowadays as they see them a couple of years ago or even more centuries ago, because they look at the architect as someone that is necessary because they need to fill the bureaucracy things and stuff like this. So this is something that is imminently related to the bringing value to the professional. So that was my idea since the beginning also. So never settle, but also being able to bring value to the architecture side. And that's what BIM does. In this precise case, we are with BIM trying to bring value for the entire industry. So we are starting with, of course, design because it's beginning, but also in the relation with the client. So we are bringing all this knowledge and make it part of a giant ball where everyone is connected and everyone is trying to improve and increase the value of our industry. And of course, being able to build something that is not a bad building, something that we can use and it won't be demolished because after a couple of years, it's just one more building with some issue and people won't be investing on it and people don't want to live there because they don't feel that it's a good building or don't feel the space, something like this. So this is also the way BIM works in our side. We start to talk with person like we know exactly what we are doing, not just having the feel about it. Of course, having this artistic part is very important from the point of view of an architect, and people want that part also. But we need to use this BIM side to establish criteria and to define what we are going to deliver, what we are going to create, why we are going to create, and which data are we going to generate in order to propose something that has a really real value, and not just because we think it's beautiful or not. It's the idea of bringing some more interesting criteria for the construction site, also bringing, showing to the client that they are investing in something that has a really value, not just, come on, not just saying, okay, we talk a couple of times during 2 years and so on, and then we build your building, and then you go to your site and I stay here. But picking all of these from one side to the other, the entire process until we build a building and get all that data and do something with that. So this is something that, for me, doesn't put architecture or design in a realm and the BIM methodology in the other. We can put this together, and that's where the real value exists. So
that's quite eye-opening. It's nice to know that it's more of an integration than to be with BIM or without. I see it as a necessary upgrade now to all your architecture practices. And do you think that that is exactly why people are looking more and more towards BIM in their architectural practices? And the ones who are looking towards BIM now, how do you think it's changing the entire scenario in the architectural front? And also, like, how do you think people can prepare for this new future with BIM and architecture together?
I think we are creating this new, this is something that existed before, the idea of having people working together, discussing, getting better solutions together. We tend to separate things too much. We tend to, okay, I'm doing my work, I send my things, you evaluate, you create your project, you send me. So this is kind of a generation of iterations that are not really resulting in something good. So we are now at the point, and we started, other person already started some time ago for sure, but the young generations, where I'm included, we have the obligation to start to think about the way we interact, the way we create things. Not just, let's say I want to create a good building that will appear in an architecture magazine. We need to create this value, this idea that the product that I'm creating can and should be used, but also everything that that was created to generate that building should also be valued. So when we jump to this ideal BIM methodology where we can integrate different professionals, where we can actually bring other professions to our realm. So we are not just, nowadays, we are not just talking about architects, engineering, and the contractor. We are now talking about other disciplines that are integrating our industry. So that reveals that we are increasing our value. We are proposing something that can change things. So why not jumping into it? Why are we still being naive and think, okay, but that's something that will happen in the future? But if people look at the schedule they have on their end and say, okay, I start to say this will be something on the future, what, 20 years ago? That's nothing really intelligent to do. So the future is happening. And if you start earlier, you'll be able to be on it really soon, and you'll be able to grow up with it. That's something that people don't understand. But when you adopt a technology or a methodology like BIM, that of course is related with technology, you are also growing with it. So because people in this environment, they don't want us just to follow rules. They want us to explore. They want us to break some of the rules that we have in the past and start to create new ones that will answer to these. That's where BIM begins, actually. So if you look to UK and stuff like this, people start to use BIM to break some rules, to control what was not controllable at that time. And most of people tend to look to the other side to avoid this thing. So for the architecture practice, let's say, of course, you can expand these to the entire industry in the end, but we need to look forward. We need to see not just what the client wants, and this is kind of strange to say at this point, but of course, you need to respect what the client wants, but you need to inform the client. Most of the times, and I do this conversation with my clients all the time, if we talk to a client, like when you go to a shop or when you go to a doctor, people or to other companies or to other professionals also, but when you talk to someone that is the expertise in the area, you don't expect to be giving them all the answers. You don't expect to know everything, but they should know and they should say what we need to do. So if you look to the architecture practice, we create from centuries where we were directly talking to the clients, where we were really involved with the client. We create this kind of division where we talk about lots of things and the client thinks, I don't understand nothing from what he said. And that's where we start to create this void of connection and of collaboration, because then some professionals start to develop their own ideas and divide the professional itself. So architects were just doing the spatial definition, and then the engineers doing their stuff. But we create this fragmented world where no one was really connecting, collaborating, or communicating. So people were just sending files, and what they called exchange information was actually saying, it's your fault, not actually, you should improve these, or I think we should discuss about this. It was like, not my problem, it's your problem. So coming back to BIM, and this is where I find that the value could be, if you look to the way, and if you start to think from the beginning to the end, and if you think in the entire life cycle of a building, for instance, I'm talking about the building, but can kind of increase, decrease size, and talk about different typologies, of course. You start to think that we have all the responsibility rather than just creating beautiful drawings. We need to control the process, allowing us to be able to then create what we think is a good proposal. But the client should be informed from the beginning. We should not saying, okay, the client wants this crazy thing there or that and spend a lot of money, but not being able to live there. It's amazing how we have buildings that were built and are empty, even from great architects that are empty because they didn't perform well and they didn't answer the problem that the client want that the client want the architect to solve. So we need to be there with the BIM methodology to talk to the client and orient them to do and to reach a point where they understand what they want and what are the consequences of the options we are going to make in the future. After this, with BIM, we are able to be more comfortable being designers, being able to create architecture, being able to understand that when I'm creating architecture, I'm being surrounded by people in different professional, different disciplines, like structural, MEP, and so on and so on. And even from the contractor side and subcontractors that will be integrating this proposal, that will be connecting with me and collaborating even before we go to the construction site. So this is the first big thing that we are talking about. We're talking about having people coming with us to solve this problem, not just waiting for us to send them our interpretation of the problem. So when we are doing this, we are collaborating with people. And if we are collaborating, we are in the best way possible to coordinate things. So if we have all the information from everyone around us that allow us to build something, then we are going to reduce the mistakes, okay? I don't believe that we are able at this point to do zero mistakes, but we are at least decreasing it a lot. And if people start to understand that, they understand that not only we are going to reduce cost and time consumption during the construction phase, but also people start to value what we do because we have the respect to do what we were contracted to do, and we are doing the best thing we can with what we know. So if you start to put everything together, you start to see that in these kind of cluster of processes and relations, we are in a position where we can start to create something that is different from what we have before. Okay, we are not like the other disciplines, like the other professional industries. Actually, we cannot build like one-to-one scale buildings. Otherwise, the client will go crazy and will spend too much money. And in the end, we'll say, okay, I don't like that part and I need to demolish. So with BIM and going to a 3D model, we are able to do a simple thing like creating a, of course, it's digital, but it's a digital representation, a digital scale model of what we are going to build. So this is the only way we have it now to reduce costs, because we're not going to build one-to-one scale in the site, in construction site, but simultaneously being able to test things and to deliver something that is buildable and being comfortable with the decisions we made and not going to the bed always thinking, did I did that right or not, and stuff like this. So yeah, this is how we can prepare as a architecture practice. We can prepare being aware that there is something happening and that we have the tools and the knowledge, and we can achieve the knowledge actually to perform well, doing things better, and helping things get better in our industry.
Thank you for that, Andre. Frankly, I just love how you managed to give me the answer of, firstly, that this is the future, and to get to that point, you are breaking rules, and how the new rules are more about collaboration than working in isolation. I also see that how the earlier practices of architecture were more to do with my job versus your job, and how everything now is now coming together as one. So thank you so much for running us through the entire process as if it's a cakewalk. It does sound like one when you talk about it. But you know, from what I understand about like the young professionals, they are interested in BIM, but they don't know how to build a career in BIM. They don't know how to start. Where do you begin? And would you like to like explain us a bit about how the curated course at Oneistox that you have done, how is it something that they can access, and how it's going to change the way they can train themselves in this industry?
So when I started, I was kind of getting crazy because I didn't have the information and didn't know where to start search, and actually what was available to attend was something very small, very let's say it didn't focus exactly on what I was searching for. So people always thinking, okay, you're going to do just a model or 3D model or whatever, but nothing like this. We have a couple of lots of meetings, actually not a couple of, with everyone on the mentor side, and what I think this is, it's different in this case in our course, that people are coming from different backgrounds, and people, of course, is something that people tend to say, but this is really true here. And we are talking about people that are have different disciplines and have different ways to think about BIM. And this is something that you don't have in every course, let me tell you, because the most important part for me is to generate discussion. Okay, that's where we grow, where we increase, and we increase our productivity, where we can optimize things. Because if you always align, okay, we are just going to do another course on BIM, on Revit, and so on. But in this case, no, we have people that are thinking in different ways about the same thing. And this is really interesting because I truly believe that this course is going to not only showing the students new things and tell them what we know, but also make them think the other way. And I think in the end, if we get that point where people are saying, okay, now I know about BIM, but what's next? That will be an extra point for me for sure, because people will start to think about BIM the way it should be, not just the thing that is happening right now, but what can be in the future. And this is really really, from my point of view, really something that I didn't have at the time where I started. That's why I also had to jump from one side to the other and grow this step by step. But what we have here is more of an elevator that rather than stairs. So here with this course, I believe people will start to know from the basic, and they will start to rapidly increase and start to understand what are the bases and how can they manage to find their own way. Not thinking about, am I going to be this, that, or what I'm going to do in my future. They will for sure start to understand that the BIM world is way vast and most of people know. And it's up to them to find their strategy. But with us on their side, with the discourse in front of them, they will start to have the right tools, the right way of thinking, and most important, I will repeat again, they will start to make questions. They will start to look at things and not just accept them. They are because they are. They will start to, okay, I know people talking about this, but what is the opposite of this? Let's think about it. How can we improve? How can we bring quality to our industry? Because if people think about optimization, not just in a technological way, but thinking about how can they bring value to the industry, they will start to understand that they will find for sure their way there, their place, the difference that will make them great professionals, and that will make them different and also special. So overall, I think this course will put together lots of people thinking about the same thing with different perspectives, but in a cohesive and coherent way.
I'm thrilled to hear that you have managed to make this course with 1:2x and condense your entire life struggle into everything that you've learned and put into this course. It just sounds extremely exciting at the moment. And I have a few questions from our viewers here. One of them says that, how do I set up BIM processes for my existing practice?
The first point is to understand exactly what are the processes that we need to preserve and the others that are just blocking the way we create the things in our company. From my experience being directly in contact with the companies that are doing exactly the same process, most of the time they think they have value in things that they're not valuable. And we need to start to understand that when we talk about BIM, we are talking about, let's say, globalization. We are talking about standards and going international and being able to, from one day to the other, start to work with a company that is in a different country, far, far away, and being able to start to work, of course, not immediately, but in a short space time. And that is something that you start to do. You start to look to the standards and say, okay, am I complaining with this? Am I able to answer the ISO standards? Or even do I have the knowledge to create my own objects, my own templates? Am I able to optimize the way I work today? And see, okay, if I don't have the rules created, I start from there. I will start to create my own rules. People should start to learn how to model, how to create things, but with rules, not saying I do the walls my own way, I'll do my project the way. No, that doesn't work. If you want to create value, if you want to extract data in the end, you need to put everyone together, working together, learning the way to do things together. So if you have your own company at this point and you are in a transition point, you need to do that. You need to analyze your maturity as a BIM professional or as a BIM company and see what are the processes I can keep and what are the processes I should adapt to give a better answer. Let's do a maturity matrix and analyze which person, who is the BIM champion, and start with him maybe or her, and maybe you get your starting point there.
Thank you for that advice, Andre. I think that's extremely valuable to all the new firms that are just starting to think about BIM. And I have another question for you. And I think it's a very important one. It says, can I get better salary if I know BIM?
Can I bet? Sorry?
Can I get better salary if I know BIM?
Okay, that's the question that always comes with with BIM talk. Short answer, yes. Long answer, it's not just that. Of course, if you know BIM, you know something more than someone that is only an architect or an engineer. It doesn't matter. But what you do with that is what make you different. Let's say if you just go to a company and you just use one software to model, you will be earning more than someone that doesn't know how to model in that software. But if you learn something using BIM and technology that optimize the way you do a task that takes, let's say, 3 hours per week from you or from your colleagues, you'll for sure earn more. So look always as a possibility to grow and to increase your knowledge, not just I know BIM, I know what is BIM, and stay there. If you do that, you'll start to earn more than others, but you'll stay there. If you look at BIM and say, okay, now I know BIM, I actually understand where are some problems inside BIM. So why should I create a script and start to do things in a more automatic way? Why am I just creating a family, let's say using Revitish language? Why am I creating the same family every time I need to change a parameter? Why should I create a family that gets everything together and just change everything with one click? If you do that, you certainly have a better salary in the end of the month.
Guys, so the answer is when you grow, the salary grows.
Yes.
There's another question which says, is BIM beneficial only for the large firms or even small firms can use BIM?
It's a really interesting question because I am very comfortable to say that I'm a small company. And I started with that question, but when I was starting my own company, I was like, okay, do people valorize what I'm doing here? I was just in front of a computer, and in the end, they want a PWG or a PDF, and I was like, damn, people don't know exactly what I'm doing here. And then I start to bring things to them. So what I did was, okay, I'm a small company. I need to decrease the time I spend in every task. I don't have time to be just searching for things that I lost. I don't have time to redo things all the time. So, okay, I said, no, I need to do BIM, whatever. If they don't want it, it will be my problem, but let's go with it. And I start with this in mind, okay? I push it, and it was a real struggle in the beginning. But when I jumped to the construction site, and this is where I think we can connect to what I said previously with the collaboration and the coordination part. Because when I jumped to the construction site and people were making appointments with me just to discuss things about some details that they didn't understand and stuff like this, I just bring for instance, PDF 3D. I send them actually. Before I go to the meetings, I send them PDF 3D with Revit models and details that I have done. And every time I did that, when I went to the meetings, people were already smiling and saying, "I never been with someone that was doing this," and they automatically understand what was the overall idea. And this is where things start to get interesting. I was able to spend more time discussing about, let's say, architecture things than just solving issues. And this is where the value for a small company that doesn't have all the time and budget to be solving major problems, spending lots of time in meetings, trying to find another solutions. This is where we start to getting value as a small company. Of course, if you are in a big company, you won't have one BIM manager or one BIM coordinator or one BIM specialist. You have way more. People will be creating other stuff and increasing the velocity that you use to do a project. But if you are in a small company, this will benefit you way better because you will be decreasing the time you spend outside of the office, the time you are spending outside of the project itself. So, and making everyone aware of what is your intent as an architect, as a designer, is the best way to guarantee that you have a good building and that you are answering to the problem that the client wants you to solve. So, in short, yes, it's really important for a small company, even that than for a bigger company, if I may suggest that. But it will depend on the time you spend on it. If you were able to create your own process in the beginning, you have one thing that most of the other companies don't have. Because a small company, you can start to create your own processes. You can start from the beginning. And when you need to scale your company, you already have processes in place. So you can integrate people that know BIM and say, okay, you can come work with me. I'm going to increase the number of projects I have. I'm going to have more people working with me. And if they know BIM, they will be automatically integrated in your company. So you have that in your advantage.
Thank you, André. Thank you for comprehensively putting this entire idea of BIM for a small firm. It really gave me clarity of how it works. I have just a few more questions. Let me just pull them out for you. Oh, somebody wants to know what is the job of a BIM manager?
Okay. It is really funny because most of the people that think about a BIM manager think the guy that is on their own office, isolated, doing clash detection or reading papers. Actually, I came up with a tweet some days ago about someone saying, yeah, if you are a BIM manager, you are the guy that are creating and searching for new things. You are the guy that look to technology and think, I don't want to do this, and I will search for something that allow me to do it way better and in a shorter time. So for a BIM manager, we'll be managing, of course, the BIM environment, the BIM model itself. Okay, it is kind of a project manager for BIM. Let's say it has to have knowledge in BIM environment and how things work on a BIM, and be able to be compliant with standards. Okay, but also is the guy that can use technology to, let's say, search for certain parts of the project that will decrease the amount of time you spend on the construction site. So you know the details, or you know that the client or the contractor wanted a small change that will impact all the project, and you are the guy that will be creating and transmit this information. You'll be actually the front line that will be establishing the relation between either the client or the contractor and the designer. So this person will be able to control the BIM environment, also the technology part, and communication. So you will be delivering and making this transition between everyone and making sure that the standards are compliant.
Thank you for that, Andre. Another question. I think that's everybody's curiosity. It says early career architects are undervalued in industry. Does learning BIM helps them get a better value as an architect?
Yes, I was one of those architects. Yeah, to the person that made that question, I need to say this directly: never stay in a place that don't value. This is the first thing, and
Absolutely.
Don't expect the next place to value if you don't bring value there. So this is the second thing, and I started that way. I was like undervalued. I was like, come on, and I started to work, and the first thing I heard was, you were coming here and you spend 2 to 3 months and doing nothing because you need to teach you all of things and stuff like this. And they were like, wait, what? That's not the point of being an architect. I don't want to be this dead weight here. I want to have value. I want to people to know that I am an architect. And I was leaving school. I left school from a couple of months before, and I was getting crazy with this idea. That's why I started to look for new things, because the only way I could use to prove that I had value was to increase my value, was to look to show people that I had something that the others don't have. And there's where BIM comes. If you look to BIM, again, I think this is really important. You don't look to BIM just a way to earn more money, because it's a process and you need to know this. You need to know that you are in the process of doing things that is really interesting and important. And for sure, at the short term, medium term will bring you money. But You need to think the way you need to prove that you have value. And being a BIM specialist, BIM coordinator, BIM manager, increasing your status inside the company is the way to do it. So yes, you could use BIM as a way to increase your value and stop being the undervalued architect that goes to a firm and just do small drafts and what jobs the others don't want to do. And I've been there. So
those are the golden words for architects, guys. Thank you for
yeah.
that question, whosoever it was. I'll just pull out the last question. Let me just go through all of them. It says, it says, can learning BIM get me a job in an MNC? I just love how all of these questions are so career driven. So yeah, somebody wants to know if learning BIM can get them a job in MNC.
I'm not there, so I don't know exactly, but
I can definitely make you have a great small practice.
Yeah.
That's what I've understood.
I think, and making the connection to the previous question, first part of being a successful professional is to being evaluated. Okay. I cannot tell you that it will bring you, let's say, a job here or there, being that, doing that, or other things. What I can tell you is once you start to do what the others are not able to do, you are in front of it. And I was actually listening to one of our colleagues or other mentors about the interview she also had, and I was amazed with the idea of portfolios and the way people are doing portfolios. And also I was seeing some other YouTube videos about a BIM specialist or a digital specialist on Bjarke Ingels group. And what he said is you need to show what you are able to do and to answer to a job offer. Okay, so if you want to be to go to one or to the other company, you need to have a portfolio that shows exactly what you want to do, because you can go to that company. You can, let's say, you can be a junior architect having an internship on that company, but if you want to go there and being and having value inside the company structure, you need to start to create your own path, and you need to start it right now. The idea of going to this course or starting to learn something new should be with that in mind, because if you start to look to things just because you found it funny, you'll end up trying to learn lots of softwares at the same time, trying to look to everything, getting crazy and frustrated in the end because you won't be able to learn everything. Okay, so if you have to go to company A, B, C, or D, what you need to do is, okay, BIM is fundamental from my point of view, because you are going to be integrated in a structure that probably will have this methodology implemented. So you are in the advantage on that part automatically. And then inside BIM, you need to see where are the gap on this company? Yes. What can I do? And that's where we, in this course, for instance, we have these ramifications where you find, okay, this is the way I want to do things. I want to explore this on that. And then you are going to fill the gap on the market. And that's where you can go to that company or to other companies that you want, and never stop if you don't want. Because if you're always looking to fill the gap, you are increasing your value. You are for sure making going to those companies and filling a job offer that they have, and never stop and bringing value. And the question that everyone makes, earning more money for sure, but in the end you always need to think about the value and make your portfolio and the skills you have right to the job that you want to fill.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you for answering all our questions, all the ones that the viewers have, the ones that we had. Thank you for giving us so much information about BIM and the practices related to it. I would like to end this session with I just need one word from you for the questions I have. So in one word, I want you to tell us BIM is dash.
I have a couple of words. That's not the
Okay,
right answer.
I'll give you 3 words then. BIM is dash, and you can give me 3 words that BIM is.
Okay, I will use a verb and the word being disruptive. I learned this with a friend of mine. Yes, being disruptive is the word, or the 2 words I have for me.
All right. The next one is BIM is not.
BIM is not boring. For sure, it's not boring. Believe me. Even if you think some processes are, it's not boring.
No, you don't make it sound boring at all, Andre. I promise you that. And the last one, that the one thing that all the learners will get out of this course of BIM at Oneistox.
The tools to get better.
Yes, that's true.
Let me increase this, do it better. The tools to make them the best on their fields.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you so much. You definitely make BIM sound like the silver lining to an architectural cloud. I am looking forward to this course with you. And thank you so much for giving all the time that you've given for this interview today.
No problem. Thank you. I appreciate it.
See you.